Welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. So it's been a little over 2 weeks now since I podcast. I've been doing my vlogs, Corona vlogs every day, so I've had a lot of rambling going on. I think I'm on number, if I did it one today, which I didn't, it would be like number 32 or something, you know. That's a lot of rambling. But anyway, thank you so much for everyone who's been commenting and reaching out. I do so much appreciate it. We are all in this together. It's so weird to think about everybody in the world as being told to stay home. As crafters, you know, we kind of feel like that's right down our alley, I guess. So anyway, as I said, it's been a little while since I've been to the podcast. I know that some of you are not at all interested in hearing me every day, which I completely understand. But, you know, podcasting in the time of coronavirus. I've got some fizzy water here. So it's in the afternoon. It is Thursday, April 23rd. Maybe 24th, I'm not sure. But it's definitely Thursday. I had my knit night last night. Hi, ladies! And, yeah. Yep. I was thinking the other day, I saw some pictures of LA. And there was a picture of LA where, I don't know, it was like taken from the hills, the coastal range. I don't know if that's like Mulholland Drive or what, you know, overlooking LA across to the San Bernardino Mountains that they had snow on them. It was the clearest, most gorgeous view that I suspect has never been seen in the last 40 years. I think, you know, Beijing's air is clear, LA's air is clear, India's air is clearing up like crazy. The very strange silver lining of this coronavirus could be all the lives that are saved because of the air quality getting really, really better. I mean, tens of thousands of people die because of very bad air quality all the time. So that would be a very strange development, I think. But it's really nice for the people who have been living with really poor air quality to at least be able to breathe better. I just thought that was so bizarre to me. So we are fine. Dennis and I and the girls are fine. We go walking every day in the park. We are wearing masks. Finished objects. Masks. I made a whole set of masks. I made a set of masks. Now we have... So I made masks. I put wire in around the nose of the one that I wear outside. This is just the extra one that I made for Dennis, but it turned out to be too small. But I made masks. Made some masks for the in-laws and for us. Allison said her mom is making masks for them, so I didn't make them any, but I could because my mask is Peppa Pig fabric. I couldn't resist Peppa Pig. But we've been really trying to be super, super careful. So we're going grocery shopping every 2 weeks. And so we went shopping day before yesterday on Tuesday and 2 weeks before that. And we waited 12 days after we went grocery shopping before we went and spent any time in the presence of the in-laws. And Dennis and I wore our masks the whole time we were there, except social distancing while we were eating dinner. My mother-in-law wore hers almost the whole night, and my father-in-law had it on for 1 minute. Not surprising. You know, he's going to be 103 in June, he figures, you know. I'm not being uncomfortable, forget it. I mean, we could have made him wear that mask because... we were there because he was going crazy and needed to play cards, and we were there to have dinner and play cards. So we could have told him we're not going to stay if you don't wear that mask, and he would have worn it. But given that we were wearing masks, We felt like, and it had been 12 days since we could possibly have been contaminated. We felt relatively comfortable doing that. So that was 12 days. And then we got our grocery list from my mother-in-law, and on last Tuesday we went grocery shopping. Now, when we went 2 weeks ago, I was very annoyed because the woman girl who was checking me out, she was quite young, and the person who was bagging, neither of them had a mask on. Now, at the store at that time, they had lines on the floor saying, you know. So this time we went to the same store, so we go in, and the entrance where we normally would go in is only an exit. I'm like, okay, that's weird. And so we had this long walk to get to the other entrance. We get around the corner to the other entrance, and there's a line out the door with dots on the sidewalk. And it was a long line. I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, we were expecting the furnace guy to come and do maintenance on the furnace. We had forgotten to cancel it, and it's our furnace air conditioner combination. And anyway, he was coming later in the afternoon. I'm like, I don't even know if we have time for this, you know. But the line actually ended up going pretty quickly. And Dennis had our list, and I had my mother-in-law's list. So they were throttling people going into the supermarket, and nobody went in until because they could see the exit on the other side. When somebody left, they let somebody in. So they were keeping the number of people actually in the grocery store relatively low. It was not crowded, and you could get away from people. So that was nice. So that's what we did. But what a production, because of course we're in masks, we're in gloves, we get home, we wipe everything down with our Clorox solution, rebag it into uncontaminated bags so that I could take it over to my mother-in-law. Anyway, so we did that on Tuesday, and that was good. So now we have 2 weeks till we have to go shopping again. Life in the time of Corona. But we use, I wear a P100 mask when I'm at the store. I only use this cloth mask for walking the dogs. So, you know, so like if a jogger jogs by, I'm not breathing any breath of somebody, you know, because they say it hangs in the air for hours. Of course, it's breezy and whatever. I mean, I think I would be fine because we're not talking to anybody. The dogs have to social distance too. It's really too bad. So I don't feel like I would be endangering myself if I didn't wear my mask while we were walking the dog, but I just want everybody to see that we're being careful, and they should be careful too. I mean, what else can you do, right? So I do have some FOs. The first FO, I'll put a picture here because I showed it on Instagram, but we're using it right now. We have a plastic tub of chlorine solution, and we had been using sort of a very thick handy wipe kind of a thing. It was biodegradable, this, that, and the other thing. Well, after 2 or 3 weeks in the Clorox solution, it biodegraded. So I said, hey, I have post-apocalyptic skills. I can fix that. So I knit a washcloth that's only about this big, and it's beige. Dennis was using, he had grabbed one of the dishcloths that his grandmother had made. Now, his grandmother's been gone maybe even 10 years now. But she, in her old age, and she was 95 when she died, was crocheting dishcloths for the whole family. Every time you go over there, she'd hand you 3 or 4 dishcloths. So we have a pile of dishcloths, which we don't use as dishcloths. I use them as dust cloths, and, you know, like if I have a hot bowl of something and I want a little hot pad, I use those for my hot pad. So they haven't gotten a lot of use, even though we've had them for quite some time. But he had grabbed one of those, thinking he was going to use that, but they're all colored. And I thought, number one, he's going to bleach one of his grandmother's things, which would make him probably a little bit sad. And the other thing is, like, you know, what does that mean with the dye in the solution? And probably wouldn't matter, but, you know. So I have sugar and cream in beige or off-white or whatever. And so I just knit up a washcloth. I'm like, I can fix that. I can make something that we can use in our house. So I did. FO number 1. FO number 2. Avert your eyes if you do not want to see a bad word. Because I finished my Behold! Yay! Behold the field in which I grow my F's. Lay thine eyes upon it, and thou shalt see that it is barren. This is the Christmas present for my son-in-law to be, my daughter's fiance. Now, the only difference is that these guys are going to have eyes. My daughter's become like an expert at French knots, so I am going to send this to her. And she's also going to frame it for me. That was very sweet of her. I think she thought he would never get it if she didn't do something to help. She's not wrong. She's not wrong. Okay, so these guys are going to get some eyes with French knots. Now, in the pattern, and I should tell you who this is by, but it doesn't say. Fandom cross Stitchery. Fandom cross Stitchery. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes. But here is the picture, and you can see that the house has more decorations. It has sort of roof tiles on it. Well, when I picked this up to go back to it, which was when I was doing the outlining, I put some in there, and it looked so terrible. I'm like, took them right out and said, okay, this house looks fine, or castle, or whatever the heck it is. Now, in the pattern, this little space here and this little space here is like full of French knots. So if Christy wanted to do something on there, I would be perfectly happy. I'm sending her the pattern so she can see where the eyes need to go. But I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it. So this was where I discovered that I really like to do cross stitch letters. So that was a fun discovery. And, you know, I was talking on my vlog about how, you know, I'm thinking about getting like a sampler that should have lots of letters and things on it. So I'm really thinking about that. But Dennis and I'm moving into whips now. So Dennis and I have been watching a lot of, you know, political analysis and economists talking about how are things going to be when, you know, things, you know, the future of the economy, whatever. So there's this one economist, and I can't even remember his name. I've seen him a couple of times, but when he's, you know, and of course everybody's at their house. So over his shoulder, this is an economist, over his shoulder, he's just got a plain white poster or picture or something, plain white, no frame, plain white with the words, well, that was a shit idea. I love that picture. I'm sorry, it just cracks me up every time I see it. Dennis loves it too. So I am well on my way to replicating some version of that saying for our walls. Now I have a book of alphabets. I was thinking I wanted it kind of blocky, and it's pretty blocky. It's, you know, it's got a little bit of a flourish here, but not much. And I have a book of alphabets that didn't have like a total block, but so I'm modifying this alphabet. I'm just not putting that little extra flourish of a line in, you know, in front of each of these. Otherwise, it's pretty blocky. So I don't know what I'm going to do for the S. I think I'm just going to skip this part of the line and move it all over so that it's the same width as the other letters. Like for the T, you know, there's my T, there's their T. I just took out the flourish. And there's the H, and there's my H. So that, you know, so I'm going to continue with that. But I just started this last night, so this is not going to take very long. Now I didn't, this is a very long piece, and his has a big white space at the bottom, which I liked. So this is going to be wrapped around a frame like this. So it's going to have a lot of white down the side, a lot of white at the bottom. And I did some measuring, and I think I'm going to have barely enough to put, because my plan is to say, well, that was a shit idea. And then with lots of white at the bottom. So we will figure out how to do that. Dennis will make me a frame. So anyway. It feels like we could all be saying that very often these days. Not just me. Not just me. So anyway, I'm having fun with that. I really enjoy doing those letters. And I think my next project, and samplers are a big project, but I think my next project is going to be maybe a sampler. When I was at the stitch shop, the first stitch shop I went to right after I decided to try cross stitch, she had what she called a Quaker sampler, and it was quite big. I mean, it was like 18 by 18, maybe. And it was like a mocha colored linen or background, and with a darker lettering, but it was all the same color. So it was a very kind of monochromatic. It was so, which made it feel a little bit subtle. It was, and since I'm perfectly happy apparently to do all my letters in the same color, I might, and maybe I'll find a kit, so I won't have to think about anything. Just send me some stuff and I'll just stitch. I'll just stitch letters. I have been knitting. So I talked to you about my Yoshi and Lucy yarn, which is so beautiful. I showed that as a goodie in my last podcast. Really, really love it. And I was talking about doing the Rocaine sweater, and I couldn't find my pom-pom magazine that I got two things going here. I got my, oh, I guess it doesn't matter. So anyway, I was thinking I was going to do a Rocaine sweater, but I couldn't find my pom-pom magazine, and one of the lovely people in our group tried to buy it for me, but couldn't because I have it in my library. I just don't know where it is. So, and then I changed my mind and decided maybe I want to do something a little bit simpler. And so I decided maybe I would make myself another arcade sweater. This is by Isabell Kraemer, of course. Oh, I've been spelling her name wrong. I thought I was. Oh, well. Anyway, Isabell Kraemer. And it's got this lovely triangular thing on the front and on the back. And it has a kind of a wide neck, too. I only got so far. I'm still doing the short rows in the back. And then, you know, I had to put it down because the end of the night or whatever, and I never picked it up again. So I'm in the middle of the short rows, but isn't that knitting up beautifully? Oh, I'm so excited about it. So the arcade I have is too big for me, and partly in my mind it might be stash again and take it apart, but first I'm gonna see if my mother-in-law would like it. I think it's probably too long for her, but I think it might, I don't know. My worry is that she'll just take it because I offer it rather than because she would really wear it or care to wear it. Isn't that pretty? So when I get a little brain space and finish my other things I'm doing, I will come back to this because it's going to be pretty. It's going to be beautiful. But it'll be a fall, winter sweater, so I have some time. And so at this moment I have it in the beautiful Medusa bag I got from the Limitless Crafter. She's a dealer in Las Vegas, so she's not working. But so what happened was I just wanted to do stockinette. So I was going through my yarn or thinking about my stash, and I remembered that quite some time ago, so this is deep stash, 3 years at least, I would say. I'm not sure. I could look on Ravelry probably. I bought a series of eco-printed sock blanks from Maria, who is Ninja Chickens. And I got 4 of them with the idea that I was going to combine them into some kind of a faded sweater. This is the one I'm working on now. Isn't that pretty? This one was my favorite. And so I decided that I was going to knit myself another Boxy. So that's what I'm doing. I'm knitting myself a Boxy. And I'm about an inch from splitting for the sleeves. So it started off with kind of a beigey one and went into a kind of pastel-y one that had green, blue and yellow, and now I'm doing that one I just showed you that's got all kinds of colors in it, and this is my favorite one. I'm loving it, but I wasn't so sure how I was feeling about it till it got longer and got to this color, so I'm very excited about it. Unfortunately, the texture is going to go away once it's blocked because I'm really loving the texture too. But right now my plan is that when I hit, when I split for the sleeves, I'm going to keep going with this color in the front and fade it into the last sock blank. I'm going to fade the back into the, using the last sock blank for the back, for the sleeves, and for the top of the front. Because I want more of the front to be this pretty one that I like so much. That's my plan. I do have a picture of all 4 of the sock blanks before I started. I took that because I knew I was going to want to show you. So that's there. Hopefully I found it. And so anyway, I didn't know when I bought them, I wasn't sure what the sweater would be. But since I'm, Miss Stockinette these days, still to a large degree, and I'm really loving my Boxy, which I am wearing. This is my first ever Boxy, and I made it with Miss Babs Yowza. And these are so beautiful. Now, the one that I'm working on now was eco-dyed with madder, cochineal, logwood, marigold, maple, black walnut, and butterfly pea flower. And then this one, which is a more peachy color, I'm not sure, it's showing a little more peachy. This one is eco-dyed with logwood printed with eucalyptus. So the background color is from logwood, and then those are eucalyptus leaves. So anyway, I've been having a lot of fun with that. And, I'm still in the, I want to do stockinette stage of life. I think, being in lockdown, even though my life isn't so different other than having to worry about when I visit my in-laws and not seeing them nearly as much as I had been, it's kind of put me in a little bit of a stockinette mood. I'll be honest. Which has been the par for the course for quite a while, so this is nothing new to you. But anyway, I think that's going to be a pretty Boxy when it's done. And I'm really enjoying working on it. And I love those sock blanks. So thank you, Maria. Looks like I have something on my nose. Just to shine from the other light. I have a light on here. Anyway, the other thing that I've been doing lately is, I don't know how I ran across it, but I downloaded a poker site and have been playing poker. Now, I've mentioned poker a few times on my podcast over the years, and I went into it a little bit on my vlog. But years ago, 2005 to be exact, I was at a training, week-long training for work by myself with no other of my coworkers. And, you know, they were long and grueling days, and I was exhausted. And at the end of the day, I'd get some dinner and I'd go back to my hotel room, and it was a week long. And, you know, flipping through the channels, and I came across ESPN was showing the World Series of Poker main event on its channel, and it showed it every night that whole week. So I watched their whole coverage of the main event of the World Series of Poker in 2005, and that was the year that Greg Raymer won, and he won $6 million. But over the course of that week, I started to think, wow, that looks like fun. Now, 2005 was right at the late beginning of the big online poker boom. And that boom really kind of started in 2003 when Chris Moneymaker won the main event of the World Series of Poker, and his name was Moneymaker, so that made the news. And he won like $2.5 million. But he was an accountant from Tennessee, and he had won his seat. Now, it cost $10,000 to play in this tournament, and he had won his seat, and I think he invested something like $16 in an online satellite, which, you know, he won, you know, paid $16, and the first 300 people who did well in this tournament got a buy into another tournament, which would cost you $200 to buy into it. You know, that's how it worked. And you know, so he probably ended up playing several tournaments online, with the ultimate result that he won a seat to the main event in Las Vegas, Nevada, which he ended up winning on TV, you know, bluffing and playing, you know, playing okay, playing bad, getting lucky, bluffing. And this was very early days for the online poker, and people didn't know what to make of him. And he ended up winning. And so that started the whole kind of online poker thing, became more in the minds of people. By the time I saw this, and I didn't know anything about online poker, I didn't know anything about poker. It was a couple years later. It was a much bigger deal. Greg Raymer had also won his seat to the main event, as had a lot of people. And so that there must have been approximately, you know, 3 times more people playing in that tournament than had played for in 2003, because his prize pool was $6 million, and the prize, that first prize, was $2.5 million for Chris Moneymaker. So anyway, I came out of that week of watching ESPN's coverage of the World Series of Poker and thought, that looked like a lot of fun. So I signed up for an online poker site when I got home, and I had a sticky on my monitor. I was playing on a desktop at the time. I had a sticky on my monitor that said, Royal Flush, Straight Flush, 4 of a kind. I didn't even know the rank of hands. I needed a sticky on my monitor to help me remember the rank of hands. So when I tell you I didn't know anything about poker, I am not exaggerating. You know, someone had tried to teach me poker 5 years before, you know, and we were sitting around for an hour, and, you know, I didn't know poker. So anyway, I ended up playing a lot of poker. I was studying poker, and I was playing cash games, and I was playing, you know, other things. And a friend of mine visited, and I'm like, oh, I'm too afraid to go to a poker, you know, like a live poker room. And she's like, oh, come on, let's go. We live about 2.5 hours from Atlantic City. And so she and I went to a poker room. I don't think she didn't play, but she just encouraged me to go play. I know I'm not supposed to be touching my face. And that was the first time I was ever in a poker room. And I think well, the last time I was in a poker room, it was probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe. I have a local poker room closer to me now. And still, very few women play poker live. So it can be intimidating. Once I did it, I felt comfortable and I wasn't intimidated, and that won't surprise you. But the first time I felt a little nervous because I was also quite new at poker. But I studied poker and I figured out that the kind of poker that I prefer to play is tournament poker rather than cash games. They play very differently because in a tournament you pay your fee and they give you fake chips. And you play until you have no more chips or till you have all the chips. You have all the chips, that means you won. You don't have any chips, that means you busted out. Now, they usually pay 10% of the people so that you can bust out and still make money. But because of the fact that if you lose all your chips, you're out of the tournament, you can't just go back in your wallet and pay more money and they'll give you more chips. It plays the strategy in tournament poker is very different than the strategy can be very different than the strategy in cash games. So it turns out that I prefer tournament poker. I was playing tournaments. My first live tournaments were on a trip to Las Vegas. And I came in third in 2 different tournaments on that trip to Las Vegas. And after that was when I decided I needed to be a professional poker player. Because if you're just a gambler, an everyday gambler in the United States, if you win money, you have to pay taxes on that money. And the only thing that you can deduct from your winnings is however much you lost gambling. So there were times when I was in a poker room that was next to like the sports book, and you could see poker players going around gathering up all the tickets that the people had thrown on the floor from the sports book because they were going to use those as receipts, like I spent this much money and to counter their winnings. But if you're a professional poker player, not only do you get to deduct your losses or what you spent playing poker, you can also deduct your expenses. So here I am, I'm in Las Vegas. So if I file as a professional poker player, I can deduct the cost of going to Las Vegas and my hotel room and my meals. So as it turned out, I filed my taxes for 6 years, 5 years as a professional poker player as my second job. And I worked it like a second job. I mean, I had spreadsheets of all the tournaments that I played during, I came home from work and I played poker. I played poker all weekend. I was a professional poker player. I won several tournaments in Atlantic City and cashed in quite a few others. And I even taught a poker class once to women who wanted to learn how to play poker. So that was fun. I was a professional poker player. So towards the end of that, I started doing lampworking. And then I felt guilty if I was lampworking instead of playing poker. That's what happens when you turn your hobby into a second job. But the reality is that I ended up being a winning poker player. I worked hard, I studied, and I made enough money to finance my lampworking equipment that I bought. And I even had a little, by the time, because I made some money doing lampworking too, because I sold jewelry and stuff. When I started buying yarn, I still had a little bit of my poker money left. I mean, it was my job. and I enjoyed it a lot. But when I started Lampworking, it was interesting because I was a systems analyst project manager in my regular job. And when I started Lampworking, I realized that the poker was using exactly the same energy as my work. But when I was Lampworking, that was a whole different, left brain, right brain, whatever, that was creativity. That was, well, you understand it, you're crafters. So that was like a drink of cold water. When I was Lampworking, it was such a different experience. So that after 5 years of playing poker while I was working, I kind of burned out on the poker. So what happened was in 2010, Senator Grassley of Iowa slipped an amendment into the Port Security Act that said it was illegal for banks to process online gambling funds to and from the people, except for horse racing, which means that horse racing had a really good lobby and poker players did not. So, strike a midnight of whatever day that was, suddenly it was illegal for banks to, allow us to get our money out of these websites or to put more money in. And Senator Grassley did not get reelected the next time he ran. Poker players unite. So anyway, Party Poker, which was one of the sites that I didn't play much on. Party Poker, it is I'm assuming it's still around, is has shareholders. It's not a private company. It's a listed company on some exchange, and I'm not sure where. And since they were a public company, they immediately, as soon as that law was passed, they immediately stopped allowing people with IP addresses in the United States to play on their site anymore. They would just gave everybody their money, sent them all a check, said, we're a publicly traded company, we can't do this. The other big sites, PokerStars and Full Tilt, just kept going. They weren't well, and a lot of other smaller ones, but those are the big ones. Because, once they pass a law, it takes a long time by the time whatever government bureaucracy is in charge of this, they come up with, the regulations and exactly how this is supposed to work. So it takes a long time from the time a law is passed till a law is actually implemented. So I think we continued to play poker for almost a year online at PokerStars and Full Tilt and Ultimate Bet and a bunch of other places before Black Friday. And Black Friday was the day where the FBI went in and confiscated, I don't know how they do this, like the website, the IP, not the name, the web name. I don't know how they did it. Anyway, one day we're playing poker, the next day you can't log in. And so that was it. That was the end of playing online poker for people in the United States with an IP address of the United States. So eventually there was some agreements around and PokerStars, and I knew it was coming because of course this act had been passed. And so I started taking money out of PokerStars. I had a lot of money in PokerStars. And so I started, just asking for my money. And at the end, when I asked for my money, I got a check from Singapore, DHL'd in an envelope from Singapore. So they were going through all these machinations to try to keep going. And I thought that was the writing on the wall. So then, boom, Black Friday came, we were done. PokerStars made an arrangement with the government and they were able to pay their players' money to them. This took a couple of months. By that time, I didn't have a lot still on PokerStars. And quite frankly, I had been lampworking and wanting to do more lampworking, and so it felt like, okay, good. This is the universe telling me I'm done playing poker for a while, and now you're going to do something else. Turns out Full Tilt Poker, which was owned by a bunch of really famous professional poker players, turned out to be a real crooked place. Who knew? Because PokerStars had two accounts that had their account for their money that they got the rake and everything. And then they had players' money in a separate place. Not Full Tilt. They had it all, they were paying themselves with players' bankrolls and stuff. So anyway, that's another story. Eventually, I don't know what happened, but I had $150 or something on Full Tilt. And I eventually got that money too. And I don't think Full Tilt is still in business, but PokerStars is, because they were all over the world. And so, whatever they had to do to, you couldn't play from the United States. And so that was the end of that. So fast forward to hard times in the US, apparently, and November of 2019, Pennsylvania passes a law that says you can play poker online, but Pennsylvania gets tax revenue from this. Of course, the problem originally was not only was nobody getting tax money from the money you were spending online, the casinos themselves were not getting any money. They weren't in on the online thing, and so they were fighting really against it, which was so stupid, because it was the online poker that filled those poker rooms in those casinos. So I don't know what they were thinking. Whatever. So now we can play poker in Pennsylvania, but we can only play with other people that live in Pennsylvania. It's a very self-contained thing. I can only play if I go to visit a friend in New Jersey and try to log in. I won't be able to, because it'll be a New Jersey IP address. Although now that I say that, there are 3 other states that have passed this law: New Jersey, Delaware, I think it's Delaware, and Nevada. Now, those 3 states have made a consortium of sorts, which means that when you're in Nevada, you're playing with people from Nevada, people from New Jersey, and people from Delaware. Pennsylvania has not joined that consortium yet, although I expect them to. And so that'll be nice, because then it'll be 4 states worth of people instead of just Pennsylvania. Anyway, that's the story of my poker career. I was a professional poker player. Of course, Dennis held his breath every year when we filed, because I filed as my second job as a professional gambler. Who do you think's going to get audited? Professional gambler. I didn't win every year. When it all was said and done, because I was playing a lot of tournaments. But I really enjoyed it, and I have a bin this big of books in the basement, poker books. Not all of them. I still have a few poker books up here. In fact, I'm going to pull some of them out, because now I'm playing poker. Now I'm playing a $3 tournament. I'm not playing big tournaments or anything. I'm not spending a lot of money. And it's interesting, because as I'm doing this, I'm looking and like, oh my gosh, I just spent a skein of yarn's worth. I'm like, wait a minute. You start counting your money in different units, depending on, what you're doing, I mean, I put way less money into this website than I would have spent had I gone to my local poker parlor, which I can't because it's closed. But, every once in a while I would still go over to Parks Casino, which is in near North Philly, near Fairless Hills, or I forget, what they say their town is. They all run together. It's a northern suburb of Philadelphia. They have a really nice poker room, and I've gone there several times, because I don't go to Atlantic City anymore. It's 2.5 hour drive. Parks is only 45 minutes. And they have a nice tournament. So, and they have, I sometimes play 1-2 no limit cash games too. But it's interesting. The one thing that I found really interesting was when you're playing online, and I learned online, you know, I'm learning how to play poker online through online training sites and reading books from these young professional poker players. I was 51 years old at the time. But when you're online, and of course my name was Diva, when you're online, everybody assumes you're a 22-year-old hotshot because they can't see you. I didn't put my picture up. They had no idea I was a 50-year-old woman. So they played against me like I was a young hotshot, and I played against them like I was a young hotshot, and they were a young hotshot. You know, so your whole strategy and how you play and how you know, is one way online. But when I go to a live tournament or a live table, and I sit down, and here I am, middle-aged, now elderly woman. Let me tell you, they do not play the same way against me as they play against each other. And it's way easier for me to bluff them than it ever was online. First of all, they assume I would never bluff. They just assume I would never bluff. They think I'm going to be tight. They think I'm, you know, be conservative. So if I'm out there, they're like, okay, she's got it. Unless they've got it too. Very easy to bluff those boys. And they're all boys. Oh, and I'm such a terrible person. You know, ladies, how it is when, you know, wherever you are, there's always a line for the ladies' room. Well, I played in some really big tournaments where there were thousands of players in a big casino. And so there are thousands of players. 5% of those players are women. Less than 5% of those players are women. And you get a 15-minute break every couple of hours in a tournament. And you do not leave your seat in a tournament because they'll take your chips and that's it. They'll just keep anteing you or whatever. You're not there, they're going to take your money. If you're playing a cash game, you can sit out and they'll just skip you. Not in a tournament. So you have to wait till the break before you use the restroom. And it used to make me smile. I would waltz past this long line of men outside the men's room, and I'm just walking into the ladies' room. No wait, no line. I'm like, yay! Am I a terrible person? That used to make me smile every time. Every time. Every time. I'm bad. I am bad. That's kind of bad. Anyway, let me see. So that's the story of my professional poker playing career that some people have asked about and is relevant because I'm playing poker again. But, you know, I'm not playing it too late because, you know, Dennis and I watch our political shows or whatever, and then he's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go play on my computer, and he's playing EverQuest 2 or something on his computer. And so now, the last few days, I've been playing a tournament or two, but I don't play it too late because I'm having trouble sleeping, and, you know, depending on how well you do, you can get excited and, you know, whatever, and I want to, you know, make sure I can sleep. And so I play a couple tournaments. They're turbo tournaments. They don't take too long. You got to be careful because some tournaments are like 2 days. 2 days. Even online tournaments can be that long. You have to pay a lot of money to play those. And I'm not paying a lot of money to play a tournament till I've read some books and made some money. Till I get my money back. I'm down still after a few days. Not surprising. I mean, I've made money on tournaments, but not as much as I've spent. But live tournaments, I've signed up for live tournaments that are 2 days. You know, if you're still in at the end of the day, you stay overnight and you come back the next day and keep going. Yeah. So, but the ones I've been playing have been, they're not great tournaments because they're called turbos, and so the blinds go up quickly, and small blinds and big blinds, there are forced bets. 2 people, every hand, have to put money in the pot. And the size of those bets goes up really quickly, which means that, you have a stack of chips in front of you. And if you don't do anything to make those chips go up, eventually they won't be worth hardly anything, because how much you have to put in when it's your turn is a lot. You can look up big blinds and small blinds in No Limit Hold'em poker. Did I say that? I played No Limit Hold'em. That's what I played. I dabbled a little bit in Omaha just to see, because Omaha's interesting. But I specialized. No Limit Hold'em tournaments. That's what I played. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, so the person who won the skein of yarn in my drawing in the last podcast has not contacted me. So if I don't hear from her before I podcast again, I will be redrawing for a new winner for that yarn. And I didn't mention, Leslie from Not Quite Enough Yarn and I are still doing our craft from your stash make along. So please continue. I've been looking at this stuff. You can see my cubbies are getting down, because I've been doing, Yoshi and Lucy is the first yarn I've bought in 18 months. So, and I bought another, I showed you last time, I bought one more thing from my local yarn shop, and they're doing this. Casapinka has a new shawl pattern that she's giving away through local yarn shops. If you buy a kit, you can get the pattern for free. It was going to be part of a live event, and then of course no live events. So that's happening, and it's a beautiful pastel colors, and it looks like it has some mosaic. So I might go out on my local yarn shop's website and see what their patterns look like, or kits look like, just in case. I haven't done a shawl in a really long time. But this one is not stockinette, so it may be a while, because apparently I'm still in my stockinette stage. So anyway, but meanwhile, back to the point, which was the craft from your stash make along is still happening. I'm loving seeing everything you guys are making. Thank you so much for participating. And doesn't it feel good to shop in your stash? Shop in your stash. It's so wonderful. So I've had these for a long time. I'm like, ooh, now's the time. It's time to get going on using some of this beautiful stuff. And this was not in my cupboard. So some of these other things are getting smaller too. It's not just, that's just my fingering for the most part. Anyway, you don't care. So please continue to join us for the craft from your stash. And so many people are unemployed, and I know things are really tight. So if you don't have any lovely fingering yarn to knit with, please contact me. My email address, Dennis gave me an email address, is flameandfiber@mindspring.com, and I'll put it here and I'll put it at the end. Just let me know, and I will pick you something lovely. I would love to give you a gift. I would love to give you a gift and know that you were crafting with some nice yarn, and to help your spirits, because I know bad times, man. In the United States, other places are supporting their workers much better than we are, by a lot. Don't get me started. Anyway. So I hope your guys are social distancing and wearing masks and being careful. It's really important to do those things. So, and I'm vlogging every day if you want to know about my life. Ramble. Meanwhile, I hope you're getting lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy, and stay safe and stay sane. And I will talk to you tomorrow and again in 2 weeks with a podcast. Bye-bye.